UFC records. Some are broken in a flash, others are broken out of longevity. But the true milestones, I'm talking about the ones that seem like they won't be broken anytime soon, the ones broken by legends, well, those are the records that stand as titans over the sport, and they need to be appreciated. What's poppin', y'all? It's your boy Lou Sick, and we cover everything in the combat sports world. I'm talking everything from boxing to wrestling, MMA, everything in between. So if you haven't, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, comment on the video below, also hit that notification bell, and let's get into 5 UFC fighters and their Unbreakable records. Keep your hands up, baby. You might know him as a great now, but heading into UFC 160 in 2013, Khabib Nurmagomedov was just a rising name in the rankings, having won his first 3 fights with the company. But it was his performance on this night against American Abel Trujillo that would get the people talking. That's because the Russian dominated. Trujillo, who was an accomplished wrestler in his own right, was completely outmatched for 3 rounds, taken down a wild 21 times out of 28 attempts. In a 3-round fight, 5 minutes per round, 21 takedowns is insane. The effort would earn Khabib not only the victory, but the new record for most takedowns ever in a single fight. It would also jumpstart the legend of one of the greatest fighters of all time.
That was a mauling, and absolutely a clinic that we just displayed.
Imagine being so dominant, it's not even fun anymore. That's what it seemed like for Anderson Silva when he first arrived into the UFC. The Hall of Famer would rattle off 16 straight victories. It would be the longest win streak ever in the UFC, but he would also set the record for the longest single title reign in UFC history, despite it held the company's middleweight title from 2006 to 2015, a whopping 2,457 days. In that time, he'd beat a who's who of names from Chael Sonnen, Dan Henderson, Vitor Belfort, and more. At some point, it appeared too easy. Like when he fought Damian Maia, and Silva just taunted and bullied the challenger for all 5 rounds. It was a performance that Dana White would call embarrassing. But the truth of the matter was, Silva was this good, and the rest of the pack was that bad. He simply was losing interest. I guess success can be a curse. Now we can't mention the longest title reign without talking about the guy with the most consecutive UFC title defenses. And that man is Demetrious Johnson. Mighty Mouse is considered one of the greatest to ever do it, and he put those skills on display when he conquered over the UFC's flyweight division from 2012 to 2018. In that time, he'd be incredibly active, winning 11 straight title defenses. He'd defeat legends like Henry Cejudo, Joseph Benavidez, and many more. Johnson was so dominant the UFC considered getting rid of the 125-pound division because at that point it wasn't competitive. He was knocking dudes out, submitting fighters, and pulling off moves never before seen in the Octagon. Considering all the pressures and stress that a fighter faces while being champion, one can truly appreciate the career of Mighty Mouse, a man who defended his spot on top of the mountain 11 times. One of the hardest records to accomplish, and it's one we may never see beaten. We just talked about 3 fighters and what they did inside the Octagon. The last 2 fighters of the video, we're going to talk about what they did inside the Octagon, but they're remembered because of when they did it. And it'll probably never be repeated. What were you doing at 23 years old? Well, if you were Jon Jones, well, he was stopping robberies and winning UFC gold all in the same day. In 2011, on the day he was to face Shogun Rua for the light heavyweight championship of the world, the man known as Bones was in the park when he witnessed a woman get mugged. Seeming to forget about the biggest match of his life just hours from now, the UFC light heavyweight sprang into action, stopping the mugger. The fighter says the incident made him feel like a superhero, and apparently it didn't wear off. Later that evening, he'd win by a third round dominant TKO. At 23, he was the youngest person ever to be a champion. He's been fighting and winning title fights ever since, holding the record for the most all-time title fight victories off names like Alexander Gustafsson, Daniel Cormier, Rampage Jackson, and so much more. Regardless of how you feel about him, one must admit that is pretty impressive. What will you be doing at 45 years old? Well, that's definitely not winning UFC gold. The man who did though, well, that man was known as Captain America, Randy the Natural Couture. He's a man who, due to personal disputes with the UFC president Dana White, he's turned into an afterthought in the history books. Regardless, Couture was and still is a legend. That was already solidified when he retired the first time. But in 2007, Couture announced he was returning to the sport not only for a fight, but for a title fight against current champion Tim Sylvia. And boy, was it a comeback. Couture's first punch 8 seconds into the fight sent the 6'8" Sylvia to the mat. He then controlled the pace for 5 rounds, smothering Sylvia with strikes and takedowns. At the end, all 3 judges would score the bout 50-45 for Couture, making him the new champ at 45 years old. To put the cherry on top, Couture would also defend that belt once, and then lose it to Brock Lesnar. I mean, who can really blame him losing to Brock Lesnar? An old man to Brock Lesnar? Couture would continue to fight though a few more years, his last match being at 49 years old, a full 5 years after he was retired and inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. Yo, that was 5 UFC records that seem destined to stand the test of time. Now, these records aren't just statistics. Nah, not at all. These are symbols, and that's symbols of each of these fighters' dedication, resilience, strength, and skill. And as a lot of these young fighters make their names in the game, make their way in the sport, it's important that we remember the accomplishments of the dudes who came before. And that's exactly what your boy is gonna do. Alright, y'all, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you comment below, let me know anything else you guys want me to talk about in the combat world. Make sure you hit subscribe. Of course, stay tuned, because we got so much more coming, baby. Keep those hands up. It's Lou Too Sick.
Every time I wake up, shit feel the same. Got a million thoughts and they weighing on my brain. Sipping on my favorite liquor just to ease the pain, cause I feel like I'm crazy and desperate need to change. Making plans to move and talking state to state. Talking pounds of haze, medical high grade. Look how my eyes stay, what more can I say? How dare a nigga tell me that this rap won't work?